The topic today is meeting admin. I'm actually a fan of meetings. I like getting together with teams and discussing projects and trying to get the work done. But then there's the admin side that not many people tend to love. Chasing up deadlines and project task updates and all of that. What we'll be doing today is using AI and Power Automate. The AI component, being Copilot, will help us extract from our automated meeting where we recorded and transcribed the meeting and get the details, the tasks from that meeting and shoot it on a daily basis. All of the overdue tasks for that particular project to our project manager. And that will be handled by Power Automate. Now we're going to take it nice and easy. It's a very simplistic model, but I'm sure it's one we can all build upon. So if that excites you, I hope you'll join us. Let's hop in, shall we? Under chats, you will see the meetings that have taken place in your team's environment. And here in this meeting, we can see not only the ability to view the recap, and depending upon the level of your license, you will see other features, but this is also where the transcript icon or message is kept. So when you click on that, it will then open a new window where you can then download that transcript. And that's our next step that we're going to look at. So once you've downloaded your transcript file, the idea is then to paste that into Excel. Now, by placing it in here means that we can get Copilot for Excel to look directly at this spreadsheet and extract from it all the items we need for our action list for our tasks that we've just been talking about in our meeting. So I have a prompt here, which after a few iterations, I've gotten to the point where I think I've got it working the way I want it to. And that's the path you should also follow, is if at first AI through Copilot doesn't give you what you want, try again, reframing it with the corrections required. So let's have a go at selecting the data in this prompt, which I'm going to copy to then paste here into a new chat. So starting a new chat with Copilot here in Excel, pasting in our action items from this transcript are to be extracted to include owner, task description, department and due dates, and so on. Now note what I've said here. I've given, better correct that, I've given a role to Copilot to say that you are to act as a professional executive assistant to summarize the tasks into approximately short 3 to 5 word descriptions of the tasks. And I'm specifying the format for my dates as well. These being what we use here in Australia, day, month, year. So of course you can define that for your local region. All right, so without any further ado, firstly, let's say that we are placing the order of the fields as such: action item, owner, department, then due date. Let's see what Copilot churns out for us. Now, if this does take a little while, I might speed this up, but if Excel's version of Copilot is quite quick, we should get our stuff. Here it comes in. Now here you can see is our executive assistant summary. You'll see that it's proposing its usual thing of what else do you want me to do. What I will do is I will take all of the text in that table, because sometimes there's a bit of funniness goes on with the dates. They get a bit hung up. So when I've got those selected, I'll just copy and paste into my new spreadsheet. So let's have a look at what we've got, shall we? And got our action items. That looks pretty cool. So only a few words. Got some notes. Looks like some verification of where the text for the items have come from. The dates all look good. Yay, that's the reason I'm copying them in. Sometimes they reverse date and month. And then we have the owner and the department. So that's all pretty awesome. So what I'll do is I'll take that data over and drag it into a spreadsheet I prepared earlier. And let's have a look at what that looks like in a moment. Okay, so I've brought the data over, the action items, owner, department, and due dates, and they have been tidied up a little bit, but that's just formatting I've done. And you'll note too, I've got a status here, which based on the due date will show yellow if it's due within a few days, green if it's completed, red if it's overdue. So, and the status is marked as per what someone has last updated it to. So this table is now ready to link to Power Automate. Now the two crucial things have already happened. One is that it's been created as a table. Now a table, if you haven't been using it, I've got a link here to my tutorial on tables in a bit more depth. Basically, it is taking a range of data. Let's have a look at something here. So this is the data we copied from our chat. Now you can see here it's in columns and rows, and all I need to do here is hit Control T, and because it's got some heading information, I will say my table has headers, and now that's been created with a particular format. Now that's something we can just simply rejig a bit and make things look a bit nicer, and so on. So a table also has a context menu that pops up when you're inside the table, and you give the table a name. Now that's going to be super crucial for Power Automate. So let's go back to our real action items list, and you can see here the name that I've given it is task table. Now that's going to be super relevant in a little while when we are looking for this data in this spreadsheet. And the other key is that it has been saved to OneDrive or a Sharepoint location. And that includes if you've saved it in Teams as well. So a OneDrive Sharepoint location is located in the cloud inside the 365 universe. And that means we can then do things like do autosave and have versions and so on. But this also means that Power Automate can get to it a lot easier than if it was on a local machine, a local drive. That's not always available. So to make this work for Power Automate, 1, put it in a table. 2, put it on a cloud drive through OneDrive or SharePoint. Okay, let's have a look at how we can get Power Automate to take this task list and create emails for our project manager. Okay, let's get to it. The application Power Automate lives alongside all the other Office or Microsoft 365 apps. So to get to it, here I am on a blank Edge window, and the app launcher will allow me to get to the app that way. So here in Microsoft 365, we've got apps, and we can go to all apps, and you'll see somewhere within the list will be Power Automate. Now you can, of course, pin it so that you can see it on your side channel there. If you use it a lot, that's always a worthwhile thing to do. So we'll click on Power Automate to open. Now we can use AI to describe your automation. What we're working with today is a relatively simple automation flow. So we'll just go through the create process. Now we can create it as something that's an automated cloud flow. So something happens to trigger the flow to start, or we can just manually trigger it by clicking go. And also we can schedule it so that we can have it happen on a regular basis. And that's probably what we'll do today, because we want our project manager to see this on a daily basis. So let's just call it project tasks report. And I'd like to put in a word about when it's happening, and I'll say 8 a.m. So starting today at 8 a.m. I know that's past if you're looking at my clock, so that's fine. And we repeat it every day. When we hit create, we'll get into our blank screen, but for our one task, which is that recurrence that we've just set up. So that's ready to rock and roll. Now, the first thing we need to do is to tell what application we're going to connect to and do something with. So if we look up Excel, you'll see Excel Online Business. So again, that's why we need our spreadsheet saved in an online space, such as OneDrive or through Teams or Sharepoint on a Sharepoint library or drive. Now, what we're going to do is to do something, but you can see we only have a shortcut of actions or connections that we're seeing about underneath Excel Online, so we can see more. And what we want to do is this one, list the rows present in a table. So our spreadsheet table has a number of rows. We want to present those to the flow to then do something to it. So by selecting that, we now need to say what actual file table we're going to refer to. So the location, you can see a whole host of things around SharePoint sites and what have you, but it's on OneDrive that we've saved this file. So therefore, it's not another library, it's still on OneDrive. So OneDrive for Business, OneDrive is the library, and the file that we want. All right, so once we've got that file located, we need to say which table we want to access on that file. So again, you can see here the list of table names. So I've left a few that don't have a real name. So you can see that by giving it a real name, we can find it a lot easier. So that's going to say exactly where we want to get our data from. All right, so next step is we need to, so we're going to filter out the data that has a completion of overdue. So from our spreadsheet, let's have a quick look at that. You can see here this particular column completion is we want to pick up those that are overdue, and they'll be highlighted for the project manager. So let's flick back to our flow and searching for the operation of filter. And here it is, the operation filter array. And the array that we're going to filter is from one of these dynamic options, which is the option above where we've got the rows from our table. We want to show that list of rows as the filter for our filter operation. So the simple query that we're going to implement is to choose one of our fields, one of our headings, which was the completion field, within which there is values of overdue. Now, those that are overdue are the ones that we wish to send to our project manager. So if we hit the list to insert dynamic content, and we're looking for the header from our table, which isn't currently displayed. So over here, we can click to see some more. And we're looking for completion. And that field contains the word overdue or nothing. So we want that to be equal to, and we can enter our text here, overdue. Based upon our list of rows that we're filtering by the word overdue, we now need to create that as a table to put into our email. So let's look for our table here. And here it is under the data operation, create HTML table. Clicking that, and we need to say which array we wish to create the table from. Now that array has been created, will be created from our filter, because that's the subset of all of our rows which live in that action above. So clicking once again to find our dynamic content. And there are the two lists of all the rows or just our filtered array. So let's choose the filtered array, and we have this advanced parameter. Let's have a look at that. By default, it's showing automatic, but we can also customize that to show some headers and values for those headers as well in our table. But that's not for us right this second, so we'll just choose automatic again, which is default, and that should be enough just to demonstrate for us today. So one final step, so we've said when it's going to happen and how often, the rows that we want from a particular file, which we filter based on a particular context, overdue, creating a table to place into an email. And that's our last step. We're going to create an email to our project manager. So under Office 365 Outlook, we have send an email V2. Let's choose that one. Now, who is it going to? We would enter the project manager's email address, and I'll just enter in one for the test. And the subject will be tasks overdue report, something along those lines. Body of the email here. And it's in here that we will now add the output of our HTML table. Now, at the moment, that's just going to be very basic, as we'll see, but at least it's demonstrating the concepts of how to do Power Automate flows. And of course, that could be formatted as much as you feel the need to or have to through company policies, and we'll just leave it very straightforward at this point. And there are a number of other parameters that you can add, such as adding CCs, BCCs, attachments, reply to options, and who you wish to mark as the sender, and so on and so on. We'll leave it there for now. And if we're pretty happy with that, here's the big test. When we save, we should get an all clear. Go, your flow is ready to go. We recommend you test it. Always test your new creations. And I'll hit manually, which we have to. Okie doke. Here's a good sign. Tick, 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 all the way down. So let's see what our results are in our email. And here's the new unread email, task overdue report, so on and so on. A bit of text we wrote, and here are all the overdue items. And they are under these headings that are from our table. And it's not looking super duper, needs a bit of formatting, but I'm pretty happy with that as it stands, just to show the process. So you can see here the completion column where our overdues are the ones that have been selected. So that is super cool. And let's have a flick back to our flow. So this is in the flow run state. You can see with the ticks all green that we completed the flow run, and we can go back to our flow master sheet, and if you hit flows, you're then back to all of your flows. Now, if you're ever asked to look at your run history, you can come down to it here, and that is what the ticks represent. And if you click on any of your action items or other compose items, you'll see the in and outputs and properties that result from what that run did. And of course, if there's any issues at all with a run, Copilot is very useful in helping to navigate the many options that you have in Power Automate. So that's a wonderful thing we have these days. All right, now if at any stage too, if you need to stop running this, say holidays or the project stops, you can turn off the run because this is a scheduled one, and turning it off will stop that running on a daily basis. So you won't have to see that hit your mailbox if you happen to be the one that's getting them. So as I mentioned with the output we got from our filter array previously, which we then directly created our HTML table from, which we then emailed to our project manager, there is a way to make the data a bit more, shall we say, better presented. And for example, the date can be interpreted from the serial number into an actual date to make it a bit more legible. So to achieve that, we would add an extra step, which I've already done here, this data operation select. Now, what a select operation allows you to do is you choose which array you're going to bring in, and in this case it was the previous step, the filter, and the filter array being the from parameter. We then have the component to map a series of fields that we will then use in our HTML table, which gives us that opportunity to do some formatting to them. Now, I've left most of them alone as most of them were okay. However, the due date did need a bit of tweaking. It was simply displaying as a serial number. So if I click on that, we'll see an expression that will do some formatting to it to make it into reading the day, month, and year, which is the Australian format, and you can substitute any local format that you have. So first off, we are formatting the date time and adding this amount of days to it. Now that's to take account of the serial number feature of Excel. Then the integer of the item due date is being produced because it may have been in there as text, so we want it to be in as an integer, and then applying that format. So by creating that expression, we are then taking the serial number, making it a number which we're formatting and making it legible in the Excel date time format. So what we then end up with when we run this particular flow, what we end up with is a table that looks a lot more regular, and we have the due date, which now shows the actual dates that these items are due. So by adding that one extra little bit to select the data and then modify it before we pass it to the table, and we get a much better result. So I hope you would experiment and see what you can come up with for your particular work tasks. So I'm glad you've made it this far if you're seeing this review. And let's review those steps that we took originally when we started what seems like quite a while ago. So first off, we examined our processes post our meeting on Teams. Now, the real key here was that the meeting was recorded and that transcripts were permitted, so that we then, following the meeting, had the transcript content to download. And having downloaded that, we were then enlisting the help of Copilot to extract the project items from the relevant data into a table format. Now, we located the meeting transcript in Excel, but of course that could have been in Word or anything else useful to produce our table. Now, with that data in a table and actually in an Excel table, we also had to have that saved on OneDrive. Now, that could have also been on a Sharepoint drive, library, or via Teams as well, as long as it was a file stored in the cloud And in this case, we were working with a spreadsheet. We needed the table name to refer to through Power Automate. And then in Power Automate, we created a scheduled flow that extracted the overdue items in the column completion. And then through a series of further steps in the flow, extracting that data into a readable component that was added to an email. And then, as it was a scheduled flow, that email produced from all of that work was sent on a scheduled basis daily at 8 a.m. So that if someone had completed work previously that night before, the project manager would then see it first thing in the morning to know the status of the project. Well, after all that, I do hope you enjoyed the journey of creating an automated workflow with the help of AI through Copilot, Teams, Excel, OneDrive, Power Automate, and lastly, Outlook. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.